Hello, cryptocurrency lovers. My name, as you already know, Christina, and I am the crypto blogger and a part of the University of Blockchain Investing team. Before we start, let me introduce you our sponsor, Crypterium. Crypterium is building a mobile app that will turn cryptocurrencies into money that you can spend with the same ease as cash. Shop around the world and pay with your coins and tokens at any NFC terminal or via scanning the QR code. Make purchases in online stores, pay your bills, or just send money across borders in seconds, reliably, and for a fraction of a penny. So today we're here to talk to the first person I know actually who closed his bank account because he started to pay in crypto. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Joël Valenzuela.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hello, Joel, and happy birthday, Dash! 5 years. Wow, it's a long time in crypto world.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very new field. Sometimes we forget that the entire field has been only around since Bitcoin began in 2009. And I remember 2009. That wasn't that long ago.
Actually, this September, I visited a weekly Dash meetup in Tokyo. There were three of us: the Dash miner, the Dash trader, and me, and special guest, a glass of wine. But just kidding.
Those of course.
Those two were truly Dash believers. Can you explain us what is so special about Dash?
Yeah, so I believe that what's special about Dash is what's special about Bitcoin. But first attracted people to the concept. Bitcoin was meant to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, of money that anyone could use, anywhere in the world without restriction, instant, cheap, everything like that. And Dash is basically a more evolved version of that basic premise. Dash works just as well, except has a lot of extra special features like is better suited to massive scaling, have instant confirmations, has optional private transactions, and the biggest thing that not enough people pay attention to is the governance model, where you have the Dash stakeholders can actually vote on the direction of the decentralized project. And so you don't have these kinds of hash wars and battles and giant arguments in the community going on for months and months. It just stays very focused and very dedicated to that one mission.
I see. I recently watched your speech from the Texas conference back in 2017, and you was really excited about crypto in general and about Dash, of course, specifically. So looking on nowadays rates, are you still as excited?
I'm probably more excited because now we're starting to see more things come together. We're starting to see more places in the world have large collections of cryptocurrency users. We're starting to see more what can be done. We're also starting to see the technology become a lot more polished, a lot smoother. I remember in the early days, not even that early, but when I first started using Bitcoin back in 2013, everyone had one address. You just had one address you sent to, and then over time they got HD wallets where you could generate a new address every single time you sent. And just those little improvements over time, now you're starting to see things like, at least with Dash, instant confirmations. You're starting to see higher security. You're starting to see fewer disruptions. Everything is working just so much better. And if people were excited about that technology back then, now it's the same basic technology with a lot of improvements today, and a lot more people using it, and a lot less confusion as to what works and what doesn't. Back in the day, when you have, especially in the middle of a bull market, as exciting as that can be, sometimes you have a lot of bad signals because you say anything comes out, sounds exciting, gets a lot of press, gets a lot of investment, and then you start making money on it, and then it's easy to not really analyze the fundamentals. And so there was a lot of crazy projects getting a lot of attention, and I like working when everyone is terrified in the markets, because then you get to sort of identify what's actually real and who's actually real, and kind of focus on that, and then build something that actually lasts.
Mm-hmm. And how much Dash do you actually have today?
Yeah, so that's the ultimate trick question. Part of the reason for having cryptocurrency is so you have complete financial autonomy, and another big underpinning is, of course, privacy. And Dash's first thing that it did was provide a superior form of privacy to Bitcoin, so you can't trace transactions if you don't want them to be. And so, keeping with the ethos of privacy, yeah, that's never tell someone how much you have, because if you do, then you could be at risk of all kinds of different attacks or scams or whatever, including threats to your safety and things like that. And unlike with, say, a bank account where you have insurance on deposits or things like that, then in this case, it's yours. It's like cash. Someone takes it. It's, well, too bad. You should have been better about it.
I see. Okay, then let's close this question and go on to the next one. So, not to put you on the risky situation. So,
yeah, no problem.
About the mining, how do you feel about cloud mining, and do you think it's profitable now?
Yeah, so I don't have very much experience in mining or cloud mining in particular. I do know a coworker of mine experimented with that in the past and was not very successful. The thing about mining is a very it's a very tricky field to make a lot of profit in, from what I've heard, especially when you don't know where the price is going to be, especially when there's no upward trend in the price of the markets in general. I know a lot of people who've been putting a lot of money into mining equipment, and then they start mining, and then the price keeps going down, and they keep mining because they think, well, it's going to go back up. But at some point, they can't time it right to where they're losing money for too long and can't really afford to keep doing that. And so it's definitely a risky proposition. It's definitely something that if you can time when you know that the market's going to be going up, then it makes a little bit more sense. But it's definitely something that it's probably riskier than, say, speculating on the market, if you ask me.
I see. Okay, and what about like the usual mining and the cloud mining?
Yeah, so definitely I would, since you don't actually have to, there's less infrastructure involved with cloud mining, so I guess the risk is lower, it's less involved. You can just sort of say, I'm going to get a cloud mining contract and see how that goes. And it's not quite the same of, well, now I have to find some place which has good, cheap electricity. I have to go buy a miner. I have to go make sure it works. I have to run it. I have to keep researching to make sure that a new miner doesn't come out. Like that recently happened with Dash. I believe the Antminer D3 was the king of the Dash miners from Bitmain. And then a new one came out. I believe it's called a Sponduli. And that was was much better. And all of a sudden, all those old D3 machines just were no good anymore. So it's a little bit, definitely being a miner is a little bit of it's a crazy, risky world. But one thing I found is a lot of miners, especially for coins like, say, Dash, that have their own mining algorithm, it's definitely a more involved thing. It's like you're investing in the infrastructure itself rather than just making a one-time bet on the price and then you bet on some other price later on. So it's definitely a tricky game to be in. From what I've been able to deduce, it seems like mining hardware manufacturing is that's got to be an interesting field to be in, because first, I mean, obviously, if everyone is mining, you can have a profitable business. But even if you sell a bunch of machines and then the price goes down, you don't have as much risk because you're trying to get rid of the machines that you make. And you can always develop a better machine in the middle of a terrible market. So even if the price is not going up, you can make a profitable machine that now everyone want to buy because they can still get a competitive edge.
I see. Okay, so let's go back to Dash, the star of today's stream. So I heard that in Venezuela, people can buy some kind of a, some things in Dash, paying with Dash. And in Thailand, people can pay for the mobile in Dash. So, what are the other countries where you can use Dash, and what are those goods and services you can pay with Dash?
Yeah, so there's a few, obviously, there's a few international services that kind of work at a higher level, like mobile top up companies and gift cards, etc. But obviously, the biggest place for Dash is Venezuela right now, which has over 2,500 merchants that accept Dash, mostly in the capital city area. It's all of the there's several large name food franchises that accept it, including American companies in the local franchises. There's Ukraine is a very, especially around Kiev, is a hot
Mhm.
spot for Dash. There's a lot of businesses that accept it there. Uh, right where I am right now, in New Hampshire on the U.S. coast, it's also pretty crazy. Like I could go. There's an auto dealership that sells cars for Dash. There's a bunch of
Wow.
cafes. There's a bunch of places you can rent apartments with Dash. You
Mhm.
can take yoga classes and ballet classes, get your hair done. All kinds of there's dozens and dozens of businesses around here, and I hear Australia is also a place where there's a lot of Dash adoption there too. Uh, there's been a lot of recent progress in Nigeria as well. So there's small teams on the ground just about everywhere that are slowly working at increasing merchant adoption. And one of the things is there's always a tipping point where if you can spend Dash at say 5 places in your city, it might be too much of a bother to acquire some, and you might just not even think, where can I use this? You might just say, I won't bother. But if there's like 50, now all of a sudden it becomes more useful. And so this merchant first strategy hopefully will get it more widely accepted and will be more useful as a payment system, therefore more valuable as a payment system.
I see. And can you name for our audience those big American companies names in Venezuela where people can go and buy something?
Yes, so Subway sandwiches. I believe Subway is one of the top fast food restaurant chains in the world, if not the top. So there's a few Subway locations that accept it. Papa John's Pizza is another one that's known pretty well in the U.S. that the local Venezuelan branches do. Recently, Church's Chicken, which is one of the top 4 chicken restaurant chains in the world, started accepting in Venezuela. And then there's a few other local franchises to the country, like Susie's Cookies, these cookie kiosks, and the Traki department store. It's a major department store that I think maybe one of the most major ones in the country.
I see. So you're not going to stay hungry in Venezuela if you have Dash, only Dash with you.
Yes, I mean obviously it's a tough economic situation, so sometimes yeah, there is economic hardship right now, but there are plenty of places you can spend Dash on food over there.
That's great. And how much money do you make on crypto back in, let's say, 2016?